Good day, and thank you for tuning in to the microdose diet. So today I want to discuss with you how to get your book published. So my name is Peggy van der Plassche. I'm a former banker and venture capitalist. I now speak and write about the benefits of alternative medicines such as microdosing psilocybin for professional and personal growth. So I created the microdose diet, which is a 90-day plan for success and happiness. You can follow my work on Substack, on LinkedIn, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everything in between. So you want to publish your book. It is an interesting endeavor, to say the least. 12 months ago, I finished the draft of my first book. It was called, and it is still called, Paris, Mushrooms and Me, and it was a memoir on my experience microdosing psychedelics. At that time, I had no idea how the publishing industry was working and what I was getting myself into. Fast forward today, 12 months later, I have a New York-based literary agent. I have a book deal with a US independent publisher. The book will be distributed by a very big publisher. Simon & Schuster is one of the big five. And the book I'm publishing now is actually a nonfiction, and it is The Microdose Diet, the 90-day plan for success and happiness. So this progress in barely 1 year is quite a feat. When you really understand the mechanism of the publishing industry, which I do now, and didn't know a year ago, maybe thankfully, you realize that the probability of seeing such success in less than a year, the probability was extremely small, very, very low. For me and my tribe, this outcome is also a fabulous proof point that the microdose diet is really working well in bringing success and happiness when you follow it. So for me, it was super fun to learn about, the industry and all the publishing world work. But in retrospect, I would have really liked to know what I know now, 12 months ago. And I learned a few lessons along the way, and I really want to share them with you. So here it is. In the next 10 minutes, I will give you the 4 best lessons I learned, because you need to understand that writing the book is just half the battle if you're trying to get your book traditionally published. So the first lesson I learned is agents and publishers want platform author. So what does it mean to be a platform author? It means that you have a following, especially when you're writing a nonfiction book. And you might think, well, it has nothing to do, having a following has nothing to do with publishing a book. Technically, you are absolutely right, but the publishing industry is a for-profit. So the focus is more on the author's ability to sell books than on their ability to actually write them. So I'm just going to give you some numbers to give you some context. So every year, between 500,000 and 1 million books are published. And if you add all the self-published books, this amounts to 4 million. So 4 million books published, self-published and traditionally published every year. The average US book now sells less than 200 copies per year and less than 1,000 copies over its lifetime. And the typical self-published author sells about 5 copies of their book. So to be assessed as a success, depending on the publisher, really, a book will have to sell 30,000 to 50,000 copies. So that gives you a bit an idea of a discrepancy in the number. And if you want to appear on the exciting New York Times bestseller list, the author will have to sell a minimum of 5,000 books in a single week across diverse retailers and multiple geographic locations. So these statistics really give you a better view of why publishers and agents now want to represent authors with already a sizable following. It maximizes the chances for the book to sell and to be profitable. So if you are listening today and you have a solid following, which for a publisher means hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, but you don't like to write, let's say you have a huge following, but you don't like to write, it's actually very good. You're in a great position. A publisher and an agent will be very happy to represent you, and they will just match you with a great ghostwriter, and here you go. But if you are a solid writer with, something interesting to say, and you would like to one day traditionally publish a book, meaning traditionally through a publishing house, you know what you have to do. And what you have to do is really, get cranking and start building your following. So that is very important. It's the first lesson I learned. It's really about having this platform, having this following, having people already listening to what you say and being interested in what you have to say. So the second lesson I learned is you need to already be it to be it. And that's something that I faced a lot in my life, and I'm sure you faced a lot in your life as well. What I mean by that is most authors who get published, especially the ones who are fiction writers, have already been writing professionally for years. They've been writing for magazines, maybe they're ghostwriters, maybe they're editors, so on, but they know the business of publishing inside out. They have the right relationships. They also have a track record, and they are a known quantity in the space. So that's what I mean by you need to be it to be it. It's a bit like when I moved to Canada and I was looking for a job, and I was told to find a job in Canada, you need to have local experience. You need to have Canadian work experience. And I was like, wow, I just moved. I obviously don't have a Canadian experience. And people would say, wow, you need one to work here. So it's a bit the same thing. You need to be a writer already to be a writer. So, it's just the conservative approach that you face in any industry, which is let's minimize risk by having people who did exactly the same thing before. So it has nothing to do with the publishing industry in particular. It's just what I see. I saw that in finance all the time. People don't want to take a risk or a chance, call it as you want, but they want you to have already a foot, if not 2 feet, in the industry. So what does it mean for you when you want to publish a book? So depending on where you are in your life cycle and your degree of motivation, maybe you want to look for a job or an internship in the industry. Maybe you want to submit proposals to magazines, and that way you kind of crawl your way into the industry. Or you can also start writing on platforms such as Substack, which is what I've done, build a track record, hopefully a following too, and get through publishing that way. The third lesson I learned is you need an agent. So literary agents are really the intermediaries between writers and publishers. So I don't know of any publisher who would speak directly to an unknown author who is not represented. So the agents are at the same time the gatekeepers of the industry, but also the facilitators. And obviously, some agents are better than others, stating the obvious here. So when I looked for an agent for my first book, Paris, Mushrooms, and Me, I was very lucky because I spoke to really many, many, many agents, which is not the norm. Usually it's very difficult to speak with an agent, but because people are extremely interested by the topic of microdosing psychedelic for success, that's probably why a lot of them wanted to talk. And the message I got every time they were commenting on the book I sent, on the manuscript I sent, was, listen, I love it, but I don't know how to sell it. And again, keep in mind, this is a business. The agent is here to make money. The publishing house is here to make money. So the quality of a book almost doesn't matter. The only question is, can it sell with a minimum amount of risk and effort? That's all that matters to the professionals of the industry. And that's true for any industry. We tend to think that books are a bit more elevated because it's an education tool, but it's ruled by money as well. So it is actually my agent who suggested me that I write a non-fiction book first, laying out the process of a microdose diet. Thank you, Steve, for that. And the reason for him to suggest I do that, it's simply because he's extremely plugged in the non-fiction publishing world. So he knew he would be able to sell my book, and he knew who would be interested in it. So he actually reached out to me. Yes, he reached out to me, not the other one. He found me in January. Early March, the book proposal we put together was ready to go. In April, I started getting interest in the book. In May, I had a verbal offer, and now we're in June, and I have signed the contract. So this is pretty unheard of in the publishing industry, unless, of course, you're famous and it's easy for you to get a book deal because you're already with 20 million followers on Instagram and other platforms. But for people like me who are unknown quantity, it's unheard of. And again, a credit to following the process of a fabulous microdose diet. So if you want to get traditionally published, your agent will have to be very knowledgeable and connected in the area your book will play in. You really want to align it. So for example, my agent, Steve, he has represented dozens of authors in the professional and personal development space. So it really is his sweet spot. So that's why we got a successful outcome. So finding an agent is not an easy task. So before I met Steve, what I did was a lot of outreach via LinkedIn, which was very successful, I have to say. But I also got the help of a very good guide, a very good book that is called The Guide to Literary Agents. And that's a very, very good resource to help find agent and understand how to put together a book proposal, how the industry works, and all of that. So I highly recommend that book. The fourth thing I wanted to mention to you, and it is the fact that the economics of being a published author are not necessarily very attractive. And so authors are paid by publishers via royalties from the sale of their books. It is usually paid quarterly or semi-annually. And two main types of deals exist. The ones that are calculated based on the income generated by the book, so the top line, and royalties calculated on the profit, so the bottom line. So in the first case, when it is calculated on the top line, the standard royalty rates are between 5 to 15%. And that really depends on the format of the book. So is it a hardcover, a softcover, audiobook, ebook? That's really what's going to depend. Your rate is going to be 5, 10, 15. In the second case, the rates will be higher because they're calculated on the profit. So the costs have already been removed. And the rates are around 35%. So again, it is a profit sharing agreement. It is not a revenue agreement. So meaning all the costs incurred, not only to publish your book, but also to market it, are coming out first before you even get paid. So you really need to keep a close eye on the cost and make sure your publisher is not spending lavishly. And when you hear about an advance is simply a loan against future royalty. It's not a freebie, it's not a bonus, there's nothing like that, unless you can't earn back via the sales of the book, which is not a very good news. It is just a loan, it's an advance. That's really So from your royalties, you will also have to pay your agent fees that are around 10 to 15%. So again, for an author, unless you are a many times New York Times bestseller author, the economics of traditional publishing are not super attractive. But an author has other ways to make money that a book will actually support. So it could be public speaking engagements, it could be endorsements, it could be consulting, it could be teaching, it could be merchandising, anyway, writing articles and so on. So overall, for most authors of nonfiction, writing a book is really also a branding exercise, actually. So these are the 4 lessons I wanted to share regarding publishing a book. You should now have a better sense of the publishing industry and what it means to publish a book the traditional way, via a traditional publisher. Many you will hear like the option of self-publishing. It is obviously a viable option. Personally, I had the opportunity to publish the traditional way via a publisher, and it still brings a lot of credibility publishing with a traditional publisher. So that's why I decided to go that way. But whether you want to publish a book, self-published, traditional publisher, it will require a lot of effort, a lot of passions, a lot of resources, but also of resiliency. So it is an endeavor, but from my perspective, it really is still the best way to share your ideas, inspire others, and build a lasting legacy when social media platforms are fall into oblivion and your YouTube videos are not necessarily watched anymore, you know. So I really, really wish you a lot of success. Please don't hesitate to comment and ask me questions. If you do, don't hesitate as well to share, because people, you know, might be interested in knowing how to publish a book. It's usually an area where people have a lot of questions. I was one of them, so I understand. Thank you again for watching and listening, and don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to know more. Bye, have a good day.